Hey, everybody. On this episode of Samp&Chance Wrestling, we are going to go back to Perth, take a look at the Elimination Chamber. Also, Monday Night Raw from last night. What are the implications and what matches do we have going into WrestleMania season? All this plus AEW, what's going on over there on this episode of Samp&Chance. So, guys and gals, strap in and thank you for letting us into your ears. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Samp&Chance. I am your host, Bobby Sampson, joined as always, my man with the master plan. I had to say that twice, Mr. Chance, Michael's Chance. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I can't complain, man. It's Tuesday. We're 39 days away from WrestleMania.
Yeah.
The card is starting to shape up. I think we got our foundation set for the main parts of the show, and the rest of it's now filling up the gaps. I don't think we need to go match by match with the Elimination Chamber. Maybe we can just give our insights and things that we kind of saw and maybe other people didn't see. So let's get started right there, man. Perth, Australia, 52,000 plus in that stadium. What did you think of the layout and the stadium in general?
I thought it was a good layout. Crowd was pretty into it. They don't get many big shows there, so they were all for it. I thought it was a great layout. Stage looked good, ring, chamber, you name it.
Yeah, I thought so as well.
Much better layout than the Montreal chamber that I seen, just because it's a bigger stadium, you can do more with it, right?
Well, there's a lot more people. There's a lot more space to do. And, like I said before, I thought initially when I looked at the layout, I'm like, wow, why are there so many gaps? But then I realized the way the ring was situated and the way it was built, they couldn't put seats in the corners where those posts were, which makes a lot of sense, right? So they probably couldn't utilize the floor as much as they wanted to. But yeah,
they did a good job.
They did a good job. I mean, it was pretty packed. I mean, just looking out in there, it felt like a WrestleMania crowd almost. You know what I mean? Just like
huge.
seeing the sea of people on the floor, which is not normally the case. The show opens up basically with the women's rumble or with the women's elimination chamber match. Very quickly, Becky won, as we both kind of predicted, but they made it kind of interesting with Liv Morgan looking like she might have taken it away. Your takeaways from this, man? For me personally, it was Tiffany Stratton. I thought she was amazing. I thought she was probably the best worker in there. Overall, the match was pretty standard. The one thing I did take away was Bianca's reaction to losing, which is kind of interesting to see what direction she kind of goes in. But overall, for me, the number one thing that stood out in that match, outside of Becky winning, obviously, was Tiffany's performance. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. She did stand out. The only thing I will say about this match and the whole chamber, way too predictable of a show. So that makes it boring when you already know who's going to win. They try to make you believe that Liv would take it, but we all knew she was not going to win. But yeah, Stratton, they showcased her well. They let her get her stuff in, and she definitely outperformed everybody as far as the chamber match went. But that's what they were trying to do with her, right? She's young, trying to showcase. So all the women did great by letting her shine and not taking her shine away. It was a good match, but too predictable. I get why they let her win, but we got to shake this up. Somebody should have won on chamber that we didn't think was going to win, just to make it more exciting. So that's what makes the booking and the creative guys are very boring, and it's very stale right now. But good match. Stratton looked amazing.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the booking and in predictability, I think we're at a disadvantage because we know the product so well.
I know, that's what I thought too. But then I was talking to my kid and I was talking to Kingsley, his friend, and they predicted all the elimination chamber matches too, and they're only 8. So this is what I'm saying. It's getting very. I understand wrestling's for kids, and they want it to be kid driven, and I agree with that. But give us something. But Stratton looked great.
I appreciate that. And I'm hoping after WrestleMania, they'll start to do a bit more of that. But I think just because of the season, I'm not defending it. All I'm saying is I just think because of where we're at in the year, what show they're building towards, I think, they have to have the right matches there. I mean, think about it, man. Do you want to see Liv Morgan in a WrestleMania main event?
No, but they could shake it up, or somebody, even the men's side could win. Maybe like even give it to LA Knight or Orton or somebody just to shake this up. We all knew Drew was going to win, something like that.
Right. But Drew's doing the right things with it, and it's leading into the way we wanted to. But we'll get to that in a minute. We go into the tag team match as well. Pretty standard. I thought it was pretty good. The highlights for me coming out of that one, the Judgment Day one, by the way. But what I really liked is Pete Dunne. He's finally being able to do his thing. Man, some of those finger things that he does, the bending of the limbs, that's just crazy. you got to be pretty flexible on the other side to let that happen. But
Yeah.
apparently, Finn broke his finger or his thumb in that match. I don't know if it has anything to do with the stomps of the hand or the bending of the fingers, but man, the visuals on those are just crazy. I do like Bates and Dunn. I think maybe after WrestleMania they can build them up a little bit more into something more. But for the moment, that was the match. That was it.
I they work good as a tag team. They do some good moves, Bates and Dunn. But to me, when I look at them, the first thing I think, am I watching Dynamite? Because they look like two guys that would be an AEW Dynamite. I just don't think they look like a WWE tag team. That's just me though. They're great in the ring though, but I just don't feel that. Looks like AEW guys to me. Like if you put them on Dynamite, you think these guys blend in perfectly.
yeah.
So one thing that I thought when I was watching them. But yeah, they're very creative though. Absolutely.
All right, we go into the Grayson Waller effect. Let's talk about that one, man. It was a pretty, to be fair, man, there was no Rock, there was no Roman, there was no one from the bloodline. Cody challenges The Rock to a fight anytime, anywhere. So maybe we'll get that before WrestleMania. Maybe we'll get that after WrestleMania. I don't know, but they've planted the seeds for that match. Rock has been said to, if he fights once, he gets a huge bonus for fighting this year for participating in a match or something. So I don't know where that's leading to or whatnot, but that's kind of what that was. I think the highlight of this segment was the end though, where Austin Theory kind of came out and first he was insulting the Australian crowd, which is really interesting considering his best pal at the moment is Grayson Waller, who's the son of Australia. So that was kind of interesting. And then he comes out and he gets in between Cody and Seth, and he basically does all the Rock's catch lines. Grayson in the background, just looking at his face, was not impressed by any of this. I mean, I think I was more interested in what Grayson was doing than Austin was. But him coming out and doing that and then getting beaten up and then Grayson just letting it happen. Very interesting dynamic there, man. I thought, at first that it was kind of bad for Austin's character, but in looking at it again, I see what they were doing and I get it. But I still feel that they made him look stupid. Your thought?
I thought Austin stole the show. I thought he looked great. I actually agree with Seth on one thing. That's pretty good what he was doing. First of all, a couple key takeaways from this. Number one, you had Seth out there doing the crybaby, complaining thing. Cody was talking about The Rock. He's making puking sound. Just that little whiny brat, too cool for school. He looked like a complete idiot the way he was dressed, by the way, Seth. He just is such an obnoxious, whiny baby. I know that's what he's doing and the way he dresses. It's like a goofy dude. I used to be one of my favorites, but not so much anymore. I thought Austin was great. He got out there. He kind of was being cocky, arrogant. He's the most built guy, most in shape guy, most athletic guy in the ring. He's out there being cocky with it. So I thought it was good. It wasn't a bad little segment, but again, none of the bloodline was out there, so that kind of took away from it. But I love what Austin did, and yeah, you can definitely see some dissent in the ranks between Grayson and Austin, and they'll probably have a match at Mania or sometime soon. But I thought it was good, well done segment, got them out there, and broke up the show a little bit for a little bit of comedic relief, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. No, you needed it. I guess you got to have Grayson Waller out there anyways, right? So I mean, to do this thing, and I felt bad for Bronson. He's another son of Australia that didn't get a sniff on the card. I really thought he was going to get into the Elimination Chamber, and you know what? I thought he would have done great in there. He was in there last year, I believe, and he did amazing.
I would have took Owens out and put Bronson Reed in if I was making the card myself for the Chamber. That's me.
Well, you know what? In hindsight, looking at the direction that everything is going, that totally makes sense now, considering, with Logan in there and whatnot, that totally makes more sense now, considering how that match played out. Speaking of that match, let's get right into the men's chamber. Men's chamber, pretty standard, pretty good match.
Good.
I really enjoyed it. My takeaways, with one, Logan, his ability to take bumps is next level now for me. That guy took a beating, and Owens isn't soft. He comes at you.
Owens snug. Oh yeah,
he's snug. So for Logan to take those shots, and he's getting his head smashed inside the chamber, and you got to keep, man, that thing isn't breaking, right? So it's holding you back. So you're feeling everything. So respect to Logan for taking all the punishment. And again,
I love when Kevin sucks on the in a little what do they call those?
the cage, the glass.
Yeah, the little things in the glass where he wrote Kevin
Yeah.
sucks on there.
Yeah,
That
he
was
was
cool.
having
Just
fun.
that
They had
little
them
that
all.
bratty kind of jerk cocky kind of thing. I thought that was cool. Something
Well,
different. You didn't see that before.
yeah, they had it all mic'd up in there, so I mean, to keep you entertained. So they're
They call
constantly
it a
creating
pod, right? In
content.
the pod, is
Yeah,
that what they call it? Yeah.
yeah, the pods. They had cameras and everything in there, so I guess they're creating content as they're creating content, right? Which
Yeah.
is crazy. Um,
Good match
this
though. Very good.
No, very good match. I think, things really started to move after Bobby Lashley got eliminated. I'm surprised he was the first one eliminated.
I didn't like
Um,
that.
well, I mean, it was him or LA Knight, right? And but I can see what they're doing because right now, I mean, outside of the program he has right now with Final Testimony or whatever they're called, I mean, that's basically it. So, no one was really there. But AJ coming out, beating the crap out of LA Knight, you can see what direction that's going in.
Yep.
So that got him out of there. Owens getting out, fair enough. That was done. Logan getting
I'm glad
eliminated.
that's done because that closes the chapter on the Owens and Logan Paul feud, so they
Right,
can move
right.
to one, which I like that.
Right. And then the brass knuckles, man. Logan comes out with the brass knuckles. A moment of immaturity on his part. He took too long showing off the brass knuckles. Gave Randy enough time to come in with a sneak RKO, got him out of there.
I don't like this brass knuckles thing. Well, besides Bobby Lashley, he's the only guy in this cage that's actually competed in a real fight before, and he probably hits harder than any of these guys. He doesn't need brass knuckles. I wish they would just emphasize his right hand like they do Roman Reigns' hand. Roman Reigns doesn't need brass knuckles, and Logan hits harder than Roman, so I don't know why they keep doing that. I get the heel thing, but he doesn't need it.
It's a character. He's that sneaky guy who comes in. He's playing off of what everybody hates, right? Like, oh, he has his entourage. He always has
No,
his.
I know, but it makes him seem weaker because we know he's a professional fighter, and then he brings up the brass and he doesn't need it. I
No,
can see use a chair, use something else, but not the knuckles.
it's his gimmick, though, right? I mean, it's kind of.
No, I know, but it doesn't make sense. So you don't bring in Mike Tyson and Manny Pacquiao about brass knuckles when they hit hard enough. We know Logan's went 7-8 rounds with Mayweather and didn't get dropped. So I mean, we know he can hold his own, so he doesn't need it.
Yeah, I don't think
Not knuckles.
really
It's some other kind of
fine.
weapon, but I don't think a puncher needs knuckles.
Nah, fair enough, man. But I mean, it's anyways, it is what it is with this character. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Gets eliminated, and then I guess he never really left the cage or not because he comes back and punches Randy in the face, which lets Drew win. So Drew keeps winning matches the way he said he never wanted to win matches, which solidifies him as a heel. He takes all the opportunities, and now he is off to WrestleMania to face Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title. I don't know if he's signed yet. This is what I said to you after the match. My only concern with this is it's too predictable because if he hasn't signed yet, do you put the strap on him?
Well, there's obviously some sort of he either has signed, they haven't told us, or he's agreeing to it, or they wouldn't give him a main event match. You won't give this guy a main event match knowing he leaves the next day. So they either he's signed or just not telling us, or something's going to be worked out. But no, if he's not signed, absolutely not. He doesn't get the belt. So, but he is going to win that match, and he's already signed. I'm assuming. We just don't know about it.
Well, you'd have to
why would you give a guy that's going to show up in AEW the next night a main event spot? There's no way.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? You got to be careful with that. So maybe they're not telling us something because
that's probably it.
All we know from what we know, he's not signed a contract,
which
yet.
Is good because it adds to the story. Oh my God, maybe, you know what I mean? It's kind of nice when they keep some things under wraps. We don't need to know everything, Takes away from it a bit.
Everything. It's like you said, it makes the show not fun, right? So
exactly. So, but Drew's in the zone right now, man. He deserves the spot. He's the best heel. He's great on the mic. He's working hard. Like he's in the zone, like nobody else.
Yeah, we'll hit on him really soon here. The main event, Rhea Ripley, she got the main event. Congratulations to her. She deserved it. The year that she's had since last WrestleMania. If we're gauging her whole year from WrestleMania to Mania, she's been top dog, man. I mean, maybe even better than Roman and those guys to a certain extent in terms of popularity and whatnot. But I mean, she's been doing it. She's ripping it up. And that match with Nia, pretty decent, man. Pretty standard. I'll be honest, it was a pretty standard formula, right? I mean, you have two heels, but I think Rhea was probably the face in this one.
There's only so much you can do with Nia. She's so big and so strong. You can't toss her around that much. So it kind of limits, right? But I thought they kept, even though Nia lost, they kept her strong, kept her looking good, right?
But think about it. If you want to break it down in terms of control time and how much action, was controlled. She was controlling most of that match in terms of moves and, offense. I mean, Rhea was on the back foot for most of that match. She just kind of got in there at the last moment, was able to stun her and get the pin, which is probably the only way that you can beat Rhea or Nia Jax right now, the way they built her, right? So, I mean, pretty standard. I like what they did with that and how they kept her strong. The question is where does Nia go from here?
The problem with having that match last is that you've had the 2 chamber matches, and it's hard to top what's already seen, right? So they're kind of like in a lose-lose situation. I know Rhea's from there, so they got a huge pop, but like, how do you follow those 2 chamber matches? It's tough.
I think normally yes, but because she was the hometown girl and they did put her in there, I think the crowd was into it. But then again, you know what? I think the crowd was just into it in general, right? I mean, they didn't
Yeah,
seem to be let down at all. They were almost starved. It was almost like having a chubby kid in a candy store after hours. You're just going to gorge and gorge and gorge, right? Because you don't
yeah,
know when it's going to stop and when you're going to get this opportunity again. And it's not, a very common place to go. It takes,
exactly. So they really appreciated it.
so they really appreciate it. It's a hard place to get to, right? I mean, in general, I
So
mean,
far away.
the chamber itself apparently they had to change directions on it. I don't know if there's any truth to it, but apparently they couldn't get it through the Suez Canal because of pirates and stuff. And that's a real thing, actually, man. There are a lot of pirates out there, the Somalians and things like that. A lot of pirates out there that you don't really hear about.
Not the friendly pirates that you see on the Pirates of the
No,
Caribbean.
these
It's
dudes.
serious dudes.
I've actually went back and I looked at a couple of videos, and what these guys do when they get into these regions where it's heavily infested with bandits and pirates, an hour before they get into those waters, these crews will take barbed wire and wrap it around the whole ship exterior, like on the panels or on the bars, on the poles, leading up to doors, everything. They take this stuff seriously. So they ended up having to drive this thing all the way to California, and then from California on a ship to Sydney. Crazy.
Big process.
Just for the chamber, right? Because a lot of times these guys have stuff set up everywhere. So whenever they come to Canada, they got a guy here, maybe like Jerry, for example, they'll call Jerry, we need a ring for wrestling tonight. He'll provide it, sort of a deal, right?
Yeah.
It's not like they carry everything with them, but there's certain things that I guess you can't replicate, and they have to carry that with them.
That chamber's a massive structure, right?
Yeah. All right, so that was the Elimination Chamber. So from that, we know now Rhea Ripley, Becky is one match that's confirmed. We know Io Bailey is a match that's confirmed. We know Seth and Drew is confirmed. We know Cody and Roman is confirmed. So we basically got all the main titles sussed out and who's going to face who. Are we going to add faces to those matches? I don't know. We still have a month and a bit, to work with here. I do feel some of those matches will change a little bit. We're still waiting to find out who Gunther's going to fight. But coming out of this, I feel we have an AJ Styles and LA Knight fight for one of the nights at WrestleMania. I believe now we have Logan Paul probably going to be defending his title against Randy Orton, which is pretty much the US title. So the Gunther one is kind of interesting though. Who's going to face Gunther coming in?
It's hard to say. Probably Uso, but no, actually, no. Sorry, Uso's Jay versus Jimmy's probably happening.
I think it's going to be Sammy.
Yeah, that could be.
I really do. Just the way they're talking to him, because last night on Raw, he did finally have his first victory in a while. He beat Shinsuke, took care of him, and it's not often you go to the guy after the match and have an interview with him, and he's excited about it. This and that. I really have a feeling it's going to be Gunther and Sami Zayn at WrestleMania. I just have a feeling that's where they're going to go. You had a bunch of guys come out last night on Raw to claim their cases. Chad Gable, who I'd rather see probably in that match myself personally.
He would go better with Gunther than Sammy would, but Sammy's a bigger star. That's the only problem.
Right. How times change. 1 year ago now, you were the main event of night one, and now you're just treading water, eh? Interesting how things change so fast.
Well, even for Austin Theory last year, he opened them. Well, that's when Vinny was in charge. He opened WrestleMania against John Cena. Now he might even be on the card.
Well, that's wrestling for you, brother, man. That's the beauty of it, right? I mean, ups and downs.
It's good and bad. Sometimes it's about who likes you, not always who's the best. That's wrestling, though. You're right. Love it or hate, that's how it is.
That's how it is, man. Okay, so Monday Night Raw, very quickly. Anything stand out for you in particular?
Yeah, I thought the closing segment was horrible. This come off a good match with Grayson and Cody, and then you have Paul Heyman come down. Keep in mind, we're in San Jose with 3, what did he say, suspended NYPD guys.
Yeah, suspended.
Yeah,
Apparently,
so he comes out there, he talks his talk and mouths off, and they mouth back and forth, and then he gets on 2 cell phones. It's he could just 3-way call the guy. I get it's part of his goofy character, and it was just a poorly lazy written segment. Didn't even need to even do that. You could have just left it with Cody and Grayson. They had a great match, great chemistry. End of the show like that. That bringing Paul to do that adds nothing to the story. Just filling time, killing time. Lazy creative and lazy writing. Horrible segment, but a great match. So they just ended it like that. No need for that. It didn't do anything. It doesn't further the story. It's just like Paul comes out by himself, but Paul can't fight. That guy can barely walk. So what's he out there for? If he would have had Jay or Roman with him, I get it, or Rock, but he didn't have any of those guys. It was a waste of a segment to close it out. Although it was a pretty good Raw overall. That's one that stood out to me.
Fair enough. I wanted to touch on Raquel Rodriguez really quickly here. So she came back from this horrible skin condition that she was dealing with.
Yeah.
I saw pictures of it, and looks quite debilitating, man.
Brutal.
But respect to her for coming back. But she looks different though, eh?
Big time.
Like face.
Yeah.
Like you could see the effect that this actually had on her. And the other piece was you could tell that she's not tanning because you could just look at her body and just like,
I feel bad for her.
But but I'm glad she's back. I mean, I think a lot of this was going to be geared towards her for WrestleMania in terms of, her and Bianca, I think, had a program in the works until this actually happened. So I like to see what they do with her. This is the hard part about this, man. And I was thinking about this after, we talked this morning and before we started here, before you came on. And it's really hard. Like I'm looking at Chelsea Green, I'm looking at Raquel Rodriguez and some of these stars. Like it's tough because you've come back at a time where you're in the midst of WrestleMania season, and a lot of what's going to happen is already kind of predicted, and we know where it's going. So, and as we know, the world of wrestling can change on a dime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like keeping your stock up because I don't think their stories are officially going to start till after WrestleMania. I know they have plans for Chelsea, and I know they have things they want to do with Raquel as well. So it's just kind of like now, what do you do until after WrestleMania? Sort of, how do you stay strong? And I think that's a challenge for these guys, for a lot of them as well, right? I mean, I really feel that you're going to see a lot more Grayson, and I really believe, Tyson is gonna have his opportunity as well. After WrestleMania, it's just a question of keeping them strong. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think in some cases, like Raquel, they're just happy to be back, happy to be on TV. Of course, everybody wants to be on WrestleMania, but they're happy to get that big paycheck and just get in the flow again. And like you said, it changes every day, any minute. And by the time somebody gets hurt or you get hot or the crowd starts chanting for you, as in Cody Rhodes, the next thing you're in a main event again. So it changes quick, but
there's a lot of talent who's ready to go. Like Braun is ready to go. He can come back at any day, right? But I mean, there's a lot of guys who are just going to have to sit out the next month and a bit until mid-April to get their stories going, right? So I think we got to keep that in mind.
I hope at WrestleMania we see one of the big guys, like even a Braun, even an Omos, put one of them in a match, give them something, because you got two of the biggest and strongest wrestlers in the world, Omos and Braun, and you don't use them. And I understand they're trying to go more to the little guy, but when you got such freak athletes like this, and no other company has, and Braun's big, he can move in Omos, but you don't want to use them because I get it. You're trying to gear towards more of the Cody crybaby crowds, but at the same time, you don't want to lose these guys because another company can claim the largest athlete in the world. WWE's always had the largest athlete in the world, Andre, and then they got Big Show, and they got Omos, great Khali.
They have never done anything good. On the other side, let's talk AEW really quickly here, right? I mean, on the other side, you have some big guys there, like like that Satnam Singh guy. He's over 7 feet tall. He's a huge man, but they've never used him properly. So you're right there. I'll have to agree with you there, right?
Quickly. Yeah, but look at the guy who's booking him. He's what, 5'6", 120 pounds. He's a little guy himself. Yeah. So when you put on AEW, all you see for the most part is the little guys because that's who he likes. He loves Daniel Bryan. He loves the little guys. I'm not taking anything away from them, but you got to have a balance here, dude. Because when you put on a show and you see all the little guys acting tough, it's not believable. The regular guy is like, wait a minute, this guy's I'm going to the next show. But if you see Omos or Braun, you stop on that TV and like, wait a minute, look at these guys are larger than life. Okay. And AEW doesn't have any of that. And that's the problem.
Fair enough. Dynamite, your thoughts quickly.
I liked how they opened the show with Moxie's Wild and got the crowd pumped up. He comes out acting crazy. He had a good tag match. The headbutt segment that he did, I don't understand why they kept headbutting each other. It didn't make sense in the match, but it was cool.
That's that old
Oh,
school move, man, where the two guys with the hard heads just keep going back and forth. I
yeah, yeah.
remember
So
seeing that back in the day.
yeah, there was a couple good. It wasn't bad overall. It's all right. I mean, I enjoy the commentating. It's always solid. Not a bad show, but like I
Oh,
said, they're not. It's not that Tony Khan is that much of a Triple H is much of a better booker than Tony Khan. What I'm noticing now, the only difference is Triple H has a better roster. He's got the best talent in the world. It's like if you and I take over the Dallas Cowboys, we've got a stacked roster, or you're taking over the Carolina Panthers, right? So Triple H has better toys to play with than Tony does. But Triple H is definitely falling into the same traps as Tony is, putting out segments that don't make sense, wasting guys, as we've seen at the Paul Heyman stuff. So WWE, they are the machine, but this is a chance for AEW to grab the bulls by the horn and make a little bit of ground. Although they'll never be top WWE, they can make some big segue here.
I'll be honest,
But
man.
they
I
just don't seem like they don't
we,
want to.
we've been saying this for the last few weeks in regards to AEW, and I get the sense that they're just happy grinding where they are, man. Honestly, because if, like you said, if we're seeing this, I'm sure they're seeing it, right? And if they're not willing to pick up on that and carry on with that, then that's on them, man. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, overall,
The 6-man tag match they had was good with Hook and Samoa Joe and all of them in there, right? And
yeah.
another thing, like Hook, I don't think is ready to be on TV at AEW. He's just such a little guy. He looks like a guy that should be in the crowd. And for me, I know a lot of people say that's rude, but it's hard for me to take that serious. I get it, he's Taz's kid, but he's just not ready to be up on the big stage there. I just don't think. And other than that, it wasn't a bad card. They had some good matches. Some they have some good moments where you think, wow, they're doing pretty good. They did something stupid right after that great segment, So
Yeah, no, I mean they're hit and miss. I mean, some of the matches are really great, some of the matches are really garbage, but for the most part, I mean, it's an average show, right? I mean, it is what it is. I mean,
I
it's
think Bully Ray said it best. This is the best breakdown I've ever heard of it. He said Vince McMahon told him, I don't want a guy who's a champ. I've always been like a Rey Mysterio and Daniel Bryan, but for the most part, Vinny told him, I don't want a guy who's heavyweight champion that I can beat up in a street fight because it's not believable. Tony Khan, what is he? He's a little guy, a little nerdy dude. So he likes the Daniel Bryans. He likes the hooks. He thinks that's cool. So they're booking through themselves and how they see it. And I think that's the best breakdown I've heard of this. So McMahon likes strong, tough guys because he thinks that's what the regular guy likes.
right.
And Tony's a lot more sensitive into the feelings, where the guy who's 5'3" in his mind is as tough as the guy who's 7'2". In reality, we all know that's not true.
But do you think that, like, okay, let's just be realistic here, man. Like, I mean, we've been watching wrestling for our whole life, right? And arguably, I've been watching it longer than you.
Yeah.
In fact, I got to see some things that you probably didn't see on TV as a fan, right? And that's not that thing away from you.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, I've lived through all of it where all wrestling was just gimmicks, right? You had the plumber, you had the garbage man, you had the big farmer, you had that. Once people started to get smart to it, they had to move away from that kind of genre. And now wrestling constantly evolves to what the main crowd, the main, the people buying everything is, catering to. And I get it, but like sometimes I feel like some of these guys and yourself and myself to a certain extent sometimes get stuck in a generation expecting it to be the same way, right? It just
Yeah, I hear that argument. Then I just look at the ratings. We've lost 3 to 4 million people. And look at it this way: I'm in high schools twice a week. Nobody is wearing wrestling shirts anymore.
right. But
so the teenagers aren't. They don't think wrestling is cheesy and corny because you see guys like Daniel Bryan and Cody Rhodes. I'm not saying they're not talented, but they don't relate to the casual guy. They relate to the hardcores, and that's where the 3 to 4 million people have gone because it's not believable anymore. Like Bret Hart says, best wrestling is when it's believable as possible. It's not believable, a lot of this stuff.
I get it. Corny. But the 3 to 4 million people that aren't watching are from our generation that were all.
Yeah, I know, but thing is,
let me finish.
So why can't they get the teenagers back and get those replace off with the teenagers?
Because when we watch wrestling, there was no internet, right?
Yeah, a little bit in the Monday Night Wars, a little bit internet.
Maybe for you, but for me, for the most part, most of that, it didn't come until 97, 98, where it really started to pick up.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that internet then.
But very minimal internet, right? But what I'm trying to say is, if you think about it, wrestling was probably even cornier when I was a kid watching all the gimmicks.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the mid 90s, early 2000s, right? We had actual big guys out there, right?
Right, but that was just a different time. You can't produce that anymore.
No, I know, but I'm saying is, so when you go into the schools, you would see NWO shirts and DX shirts. Now, you're not going to see one kid wearing a Bloodline shirt or Judgment Day shirt because those those crews are not believable. They're not cool. When you have Rhea Ripley and Dom acting tough to big guys, it's not believable.
But I also believe the emergence of the UFC and all these things kind of took
UFC
a lot
hurts
of
too,
those
yeah.
people away because that was more real, right? Like, I mean, you want to watch real fighting or do you want to watch wrestling? You
No,
know,
I know, but at least like when you have girls beating up guys, it's not realistic. You don't see that in boxing, you don't see it in UFC. So how do you expect a kid who's doing amateur wrestling say, wait a minute, I just seen Rhea Ripley beat up Brock Lesnar? I know it didn't happen, for example, and that becomes teasing and start laughing about it. So that's the problem. You need to have a little more believability as much as you can in wrestling. And even at the indie shows, I mean, look at the indie shows. None of these guys, for the most part, 90% of the roster is not in shape. They don't train. They're pale. They can barely move. And then they expect us to take that seriously when there's guys in the crowd who are in better shape than you, and you're supposed to be the pro. That's the problem.
No, I'm not disillusioning. I'm just trying to show you my side of it. Like, I'm not disagreeing with you, right?
Yeah.
I'm on board with what you're saying. I just want you to see the other side as well. Like, you know, just
no,
like
I get what they're doing and who they're catering it to, but I'm saying you're not going to gain that popularity back until you bring some realism back.
I get it, right? And with that to happen, they have to change. And maybe we'll start to see that with Netflix because their boundaries are lower, right? They don't have to work with a PG.
I don't think we'll see that again because the Cody Crybabies run wrestling. As soon as they started crying, literally Ari Emanuel and Khan or Triple H, whoever, they literally change a match right away. We got to give them what they want. I get it. You give the fans what they want, then you're alienating half your other base. Say, wait a minute, you want to see The Rock. Now you're not seeing him.
Well, let's see how it plays out, man. I mean, we'll always have this argument, right? I think one day we should probably get to podium.
Well, it's because this when I play soccer with guys in their 20s, that nobody watches wrestling and you're that age.
No,
and before, when I was in my 20s, is all we would talk about. So like they've lost a key market along the way.
Right.
And
I think
because
there's a
the
lot
Cody
of
Crybabies
factors
run
there.
wrestling now.
No, I get it. And like you said, you talk about the Cody Crybabies. I think that internet wrestling community has a big role to play in all of this.
Yep.
I think the fact that the emergence of the UFC and the success they've had has a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's other factors, you know, social dynamics. And I mean, I don't want to get into the psychology of society.
Yeah, that's part of it too.
But there's so much there in play. But brother, man, like I said, man, at the end of the day, it's WrestleMania season. So let's be happy. Let's enjoy the buildup and let's go from there. I tell you what, man, let's wrap this puppy up here. Let's call it a day. And let's see what SmackDown brings. I think The Rock and Roman are going to be on that. In fact, The Rock will be on the next 3 SmackDowns leading up to WrestleMania.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So let's see what he's got planned for everybody and whatnot. Because if we're getting 98 Rock, maybe this is going to open the door to more of what you're saying is needed, the more of the reality.
He's trying. He's got a good promo.
Well, let's see.
I like everything he's saying.
Let's see what he does, right? Like, I mean, I think if anyone's going to
he's pushing the Cody Crybaby. He's calling this guy fat. He's saying you're crybabies. Like
you have not seen that since the Attitude Era, right?
Not really, no.
So let's see what they do with this, and let's see what direction they pull, and we'll be here to call them out on whatever they're doing.
I just want one faction in wrestling to come along, and it's not Judgment Day, and it's not Bloodline a little bit, with some big guys that are strong. You know, like an NWO, like you had Hogan Hall and that, those are larger than life dudes, right? And now you see all these factions, all these little guys in it, and they're acting super tough, and it's hard for me to swallow that.
The last best faction, in my opinion, was probably
Evolution.
Well, I mean, Evolution was good too, but in terms of just success, I'd have to say it'd have to be the Shield.
Yeah.
In terms of overall success, you look at those 3 guys, and you always think, okay, when you look at a faction, you always think, okay, for example, Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty, we always thought that Shawn was going to be the guy, if he broke away, was going to become the star, correct?
Yeah.
Right. If you look at the Street Profits, as much as I like Dawkins, you know, it's
Montez by far
who's going to become the guy, and you know, Montez is going to be the Shawn, and he's going to be the Marty Jannetty sort of a deal. But in the Shield's case, it seems like all these guys were successful in some way. Like, think about it. All 3 of them were world champion at one time.
Yep.
In succession. Right? So they've all had their runs. I mean, I don't know what I think Moxley would have been the odd man out if he had stuck around here.
Probably. He's not quite as talented as those guys. He is in a different way, but.
Right? But okay, let's end it here, brother man, because we could just keep talking and talking and talking and talking. So, on that note, I am Bobby Sampson. He is Mr. Chance Michaels.
And in the words of the great AC/DC, those that download, like, and subscribe to the show, we salute you.
We do salute you guys. And on that note, guys, just play it safe this week, man. Be good to each other, be kind, and remember, if people are not agreeing with what you're saying, if people are not working with you but against you, lose them. You don't need them in your life. Believe in yourself, believe in your ability, and surround yourself with people who believe in you and what you bring to the table. That's all I got to say.
Well said. Well said.
On that note, Samp and Chance, have the greatest week of your life. God bless you all. Samp and Chance out.